Yeah, we can
Uh,
start. Yeah.
Hello. Am I visible and audible?
Yep.
Sorry. Excuse me. Allow me to turn on my clock. Okay. I will begin. Wait, before I begin, I prefer verbal POIs. Refer to me as he, him, thank you. And I will begin in three, two, one. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So today we are debating on the ethicality of allowing media to publish information about the deceased in a tragedy with the explicit permission of the family or not. As government, we believe in this strongly and we will provide reasons of why we do. But before we begin, allow us to define the motion first. The information that is regarded within the motion is any piece of information that is identity specific, like names, ages, addresses, religious beliefs, etc. Like a general things such as gang members or drivers are in general incident specific terms and do not apply in this case as they do not help in pinning down a particular individual, right? And we believe that there is an extra word that this motion implicitly implies, right? Apathy. What is apathy? Apathy is when a human is uncaring about a certain event or an activity, right? And we believe that this is something that we're trying to avoid. The media's entirety, media's purpose is to prevent apathy, is to inform everyone and to enlighten the public and to increase social awareness about a certain event, right? And hence, apathy is, we believe, something that we should avoid at all costs. Now, the burden of proof of the government side is to prove that the media can drive social impact through accurate reporting and how the media's pragmatic reporting of um, societal causes is more important and more impactful than publishing information about the deceased. So, moving on, what can the media do? It can drive social impact through accurate reporting, but it can also be used malignantly or negatively with the sharing of personal information without the permission of the family, right? It puts the spotlight at someone or something during a report, right? It raises awareness for those in spotlight and generates social discussion, but like this is just pointing the spotlight on the victim and their families. Does this solve anything? This generates unnecessary attention for them, right? It causes privacy and security issues, obviously, and causes society to scrutinize the incident in a wrong way. They might over focus on the identity of the deceased and how and why, how instead of the whys, right? In our case, in our world, we believe that not publishing personal information will allow people to focus more on the societal causes of why a victim or a deceased is unfortunately killed. And we believe that this solves the root of the problem and it looks at the stem of this entire tragedy and actually improves upon it, right? My
POI,
DPM
please.
would later. My DPM would further elaborate upon this case. Yes, POI.
Don't you think that by mentioning a name or other personal information, it will give a better narration for the tragedy and therefore be able to raise more awareness?
This is a great point. We would actually raise this point later on in our speeches, but allow me to respond to that right now. Not everyone can relate to this narrative, right? Perhaps a person's identity, maybe a person without children, or I mean, a person, if the deceased is a train worker, for example, with three children, maybe some blue collar workers or child bearers can relate to that and care about the issue, right? And best case scenario, they go out and protest. They actually uh, be incensed enough to have an opinion upon this issue and use the information, the personal information provided by the media to strive for change. But the point is, not everyone can relate to this narrative, right? People without children, people who are white collar, people who aren't within the societal
Alright.
group of no thank you of the deceased would not relate. There isn't enough reach, there isn't enough impact, right? If you publish personal information, the people who can't relate to the personal information would just dismiss the case as something happening to someone who isn't them. It promotes apathy instead of restricting it, which contradicts the very reason why media exists anyways, right? And in
Right.
contrast, with a societal cause, no thank you. People feel impacted, right? People can relate to a societal cause because in a society, everyone lives in a society whether they want to or not, right? It's undeniable that with a societal cause, people would feel impacted and everyone would feel that they must contribute to the issue in order to promote to prevent um, themselves from getting harmed, right? My DPM would further elaborate upon the details on what a societal cause is and how the media would report on it, and we would also discuss the important stakeholders of marginalized groups. So um, we don't believe that publishing personal information humanizes disease, right? Because we concede that this is a method of uniting society through an appeal on humanity, right? A pathos and ethos attack. But overall, my point is not everyone can relate to the deceased. And we don't believe that there is a need to publish information and risk the privacy leak in exchange for a benefit that isn't even that good. So what has the government side told you? We have defined emotion, we've defined information, we've brought out the important metric of apathy and how social media and how media aims to prevent that. We have shown the burden of proof to prove the media's importance and how they should report on societal causes instead. And we have also proven that the opposition's case of how personal information humanizes the deceased is not the case. My DPM would elaborate upon those details, and therefore this house, this motion must and will stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. Welcoming Leader of Opposition, here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yep.
So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the first speaker from the opposition, and our house believes that we should allow the media to publish information about the disease in the tragedy without the explicit permission of the family. So firstly, I would like to start with some rebuttal. So just now, our first speaker from the government has mentioned that by doing this, it will put a spotlight on the disease, and the spectators, the people, will over-focus on the identity of the disease. But let me ask you, what is the real purpose of having a media? A media is there so that it can report accurate news and also raise awareness of this society so that all of the people can know what exactly happened in this tragedy. So if the family members do not give the permission to the media to post the information of the disease, so the whole news, the whole tragedy is covered up. Who can know about the detail of the news? Who can know about how exactly that tragedy happened? So our definition today is that tragedy means an event that caused great suffering, includes horrible accidents and also crime. So our definition for the disease, for the information of disease, includes how the tragedy happened, the process of the tragedy happened. Our core is to ensure that the media has necessary freedom and the responsibility to report accurate news and also ethically in public interest. We believe that a responsible journalism can coexist with the rights of the family to privacy and dignity, and also, in the meantime, share accurate news and raise public awareness. Our value lies in the principle of the press freedom, public interest, and also crucial role of media, of reporter in informing the society and encourage discussions about certain issue, thus raise awareness. So our first argument today is freedom of press. As I've mentioned, the main reason why there are newspapers out there is to report accurate news. So by restricting, if we don't allow media to publish information without the permission of the family, it will bring a restriction to the freedom of the media, thus create a big effect. Because if the disease and the info of this tragedy is based on family's permission, it will lead to suppress critical information. It will limit investigation journalism and also undermine democracy. So media, newspapers, their responsibility is to always updating the news, always updating what is happening to the world, and always report important things that happen. And public have the so if we do not get the permission, the media cannot post that information. All this tragedy will be covered up, and then no one will know about what had happened. So if we need to ask permission, then a lot of news will be covered up. How can the reporter act their responsibility, implement their responsibility, which is to report news? The transparency of news is important for preventing future tragedies and also seeking justice for the society. It is the media's freedom to publish information, so there is nothing to hide. Next, outdated news. So by requiring this explicit family consent, it can result in delays of news. Because imagine, if your family has died because of a tragedy, of course, the family members will spend up a lot of time in dealing with the deceased affairs and then have no time in replying to the media if they want to give the permission for the media to post info or not. So if we have to wait for the family members to respond, it might take up days, even months for the media. So thus, when they get their permission, the tragedy has already been outdated. So if there's something against public interest, who is there to report? The delay can hinder public's ability to make informed decision. Yes, your POI.
Do you think the media has a responsibility to respect the opinions and wishes of the deceased family?
I get the point. So this will lead to my next argument, which is a responsible journalism, a responsible reporter. They can protect the privacy of the deceased. In the meantime, sharing the news and updated what had happened to the world. So we have ethical reporting guidelines. They have a guidelines like which info we can report, which info we cannot report. And there are legal safeguards to ensure that sensitive personal information, will be handled cautiously without sensationalism. So I believe that the privacy of the people can be secure in the meantime for the people to know about what had happened. And now you might say that, so where's the privacy? So if the family members they're not willing to share, then we are posting them without their permission. Is that justice for them? No, we have a greater objective here. We're not just caring about family members of the deceased. We have to care about a whole society. So the news, this reported news, have something to do with the people that are influential enough to tremble the whole nation. Imagine if a prominent figure like siphoned the money and then killed someone, and the public do not have this info about the whole mastermind behind this kind of case, it will lead to more crimes in the future. So what our core today is that we are not just caring about a small stakeholder here. We're caring about a whole society. So do you want to secure the privacy of a deceased family members, or do you want to secure thousands of lives in the society? So our conclusion is that Our house firmly believes that the media to publish information about the disease and tragedy without the permission is very important step to maintain the press freedom and ensure the accountability. We advocate the dignity of the disease while also serving greater good of the society by raising awareness and then prevent future tragedies to happen. So our burden of proof for the government today is that you have to prove that the privacy of a deceased family member is more important than the safety of the whole society. My speech will end here. Never be prouder to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Welcome into the floor, DPM. You're here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yep.
Okay. Give me a quick 5 seconds to like set up a timer. Okay. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Regarding the subject, the government believes that there is no need for private information to be given out in media in order to be able to successfully report an incident. Let me begin with a few rebuttals. Now, when opposition is suggesting that we publish regardless of personal wishes, we can see that the media can report accurate news. But while that is something that the media should do, the organizations also sometimes have their own agenda. So this is an idealistic thought, but in reality, the details can be much more iffy. The opposition also suggests that by not allowing the media to portray personal information about individuals, said news report would not be truthful and it would not be transparent. But we see that a lot of information that is specific to a particular person is not actually important to the details of a report. The media does have a responsibility to update the world, but there are many cases where minimal details can be given and the truth can still be presented. The opposition also suggests that we have ethical reporting guidelines, but does this other information actually matter? Because again, same point, but if these reporters are able to do this reporting without having to give up too much information, then doesn't this exactly land into what we're saying? I believe that the opposition has failed to prove why information has to be given out in order for a report to be accurate and beneficial to society. Now, today we are going to prove why this privacy is important to an individual's family, and also why there is no need to give out personal information. As my first point, we have to identify the reasons for why a family would not want to be published. First, it would be privacy issues. Being in an incident puts a necessary spotlight and burden on the family in a time of mourning and healing. The unwanted attention from organizations that would be very draining on this particular family. It's not only do they have to deal with the loss of a loved one, they also have to deal with requests from organizations or social right movements for some kind of support on their activities. And this might not be something that everyone would want to deal with. The loss of a family member is impactful, and to have to handle so many things at the same time would, in many cases, affect a family's mental health tremendously. If we set this system where media can only report based on the family's wishes, then they only have to deal with this one thing, and they can choose when particular things will happen. They can choose when people can approach. Sure.
Don't you think that this will hinder reporting progress and delay of information if you have to ask for the permission of the families?
Now, if that is necessary information, we believe that can be reported later, because the bare bones of a particular incident can also be shown without a massive amount of information, which information that can be reviewed later should be reviewed later, and the media should make do with what they have. But we will prove why that is possible later. if they want now, if they can choose when particular things happen, then this will create a sense of stability, and it'll be a better time for someone who's grieving and as like who wouldn't want to feel better. So we believe that that is something that we should implement. Now, in a case where the victim is also a victim, so a deceased member who's also responsible for said is responsible for elements of said tragedy. So let's say someone who caused the deaths of others. The privacy also encourages the safety for the family and prevents them from being targeted by other groups who may, in anger or in hatred, may try to take action against them. This safety is important as these family members technically have nothing to do with this incident whatsoever in a majority of cases. So we believe that privacy is important in this area to prevent bad things from happening. Now, the purpose of the media is to educate and inform on events. And we, again, as I've said many times back, the background is not as important. While we can say in a car crash, we can say, oh, a particular driver was drunk and they crashed into a specific amount of cars. The actual identity of particular individuals in this incident, the drivers, the people who are in the other cars, they don't actually matter because the problem is that there was a car crash due to alcoholism.
POI,
Now, this may be no, I'm rejecting that. Now what this is a rather generalized case. We believe that a majority of cases can be laid down to their bare bones, which is there is a problem caused by particular factors, and identity does not play into these factors as much. Names, location of education, jobs, a lot of these things don't actually matter as much as you would think. How does pragmatic reporting become more relevant? If we generalize these cases, then everyone becomes equal in the eyes of the media. Everyone is the same. And if identity doesn't matter, then we can create more empathy as people who are looking at media can instantly identify with the people involved in the incidents. Cases can be stripped down to their basic information. And by taking identity from those involved, we can put focus away from society on blaming particular people who have caused this incident and instead address these problems directly. Because the root of the problem is not a particular person. It is this event which has happened due to societal factors. Society can focus on the event instead of the person. Then more progress will be made. And this will not detract from media because the purpose of media is to educate and solve these problems, not to blame a particular person. If the family does choose so to involve themselves in this case, then things will go as normal. So we see that in both cases, whether the family chooses to or to not, things will work out fine. The society will progress in different ways, but it will be equal. Hence, this motion must and will stand.
Thank you, DPM. Welcoming to the floor, Diallo. Here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So the main points that the government has given today is, of course, that it will generate the spotlight and they'll be focused and the people will be focused on the how instead of the why. And another thing is the privacy leak. So I'll be focused and I'll be rebutting those points later on in my speech. So the government second speaker's question is why personal information is so important. Because first, if you don't have such a good narrative, it could be misleading. And second, if you don't have to ask for permission for this personal information, it could open the door and make it easier to elaborate on how and why this incident happened. So first, I'll be talking about a few points about why not asking about permission is so important. Because first thing is it will help that it won't cover up some sensitive topics. Because for example, there are some privilege, like for some politicians. And if you don't let their personal information be out in the open, it will help to cover up for some scandals. And another thing is, like I've mentioned, it could open a door to you to investigate further into this incident. And in your side, you're just preventing further investigation because you have to ask for the permission. And if the family doesn't give you the permission, you can't do anything about it at all. And then the second thing is the
POI.
delay. No, thank you. It's the delay of information. Because if in your side you have to ask, normally it's the reporter or the journalist, you have to ask the family about the permission. And that could take it could take a very long time because the family has to contemplate about it, has to contemplate the consequences, rather if they want it or not. So that could just hinder reporting progress, and that could delay some public information. Now, the government has responded by saying that kind of information can be reviewed later, but we're saying that news can't wait, and the newspaper has a lot of things to report every day, so they can't just like report one thing this day and tomorrow they report the same thing again. That would not be sufficient and not efficient enough. And then our second point today is that it will give better narration. Why? So imagine this scenario. Let's say there were two different kind of newspaper reportings. The first was, for example, a man took some beer last night and then got into a crash which killed 30 people. And then another kind of reporting is saying, for example, James, age 30, took some beer last night, got into a crash and killed about 12 people. Now, which would feel more distant? Definitely the first one, right? Because there wasn't any personal information in this, and it's just a very general thing like a man or a woman, and there's no personal information. So you would think, okay, it's not likely to happen to us, to happen to you too, and it would not raise awareness in this case.
POI.
And yes, a POI.
You have mentioned that saying in general terms that a man or a woman wouldn't make people feel like it'll affect you. But on the contrast, doesn't this increase how relatable the case is? Because there is a lot more men and women than there are James that are age 30, so to speak.
No, that would not be the case, because if you mention a name, it will be able to feel more natural and more true to yourself. Because, well, judge it by yourself. Because if you mention a name, of course, it will feel like the story is more true, and that could happen to you. Whether a man or woman is too generalized. And another thing is that it could lead to inaccurate information because you're not giving the information that's sufficient enough for this case. So this could lead to other like suspicions and rumors that could arise later on. Okay, and our fourth point today is the freedom of press. So the responsibility for the journalist is of course to report accurately the case. And if you were not given permission for this personal information, it could lead to other misleadings. All right, and another thing is that the government has talked about the privacy leak. But as what is more important, caring about one family's privacy, or raising awareness to hundreds or thousands of people around the world or in that country itself. And another thing is that if you have this kind of progress where you have to ask for permission if you want this personal information to be published or not, this could disrupt the media industry, and the family members could either like enforce lawsuit on the media because of not giving permission. Now, and another thing that's very important is that this will lead to an effect which is called a chilling effect. Because normally, if the reporters or the journalists, they have to contact the family members and ask if they want this personal information to be shared or not, and then the family members, like for some other reasons or personal reasons or any kind of privacy, they'll say no. So after a very long time, and the journalists will become discouraged because they find that every time they ask, they have to ask for permission themselves, and that will lead
POI.
to no, thank you, and that will lead to journalists not being so eager to investigate or to cover more sensitive topics, and that could prevent further investigation. So, our whole quote today is that we will be able to raise more awareness. Why? Because first thing is that there will be a better narration, and there would be not that much rumors because all the information is laid out there in the open. And so instead of just protecting one person's privacy, we are actually telling the whole world that we should be careful with themselves because we're showing the names or other things on the public. So that's why our case stands today, because we're not covering our sensitive topics. We're giving out a chance for all the information to be laid out. So that could enable and that could give a doorway to elaborate on this incident or to prevent further investigation, because there is no like obstacle standing right there where you have to ask for permission. And that's why we are so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Diallo. Welcoming Government Whip. Here.
Am I visible and audible?
Yep.
Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we see that in today's debates, opposition has many flaws in their case in which they rebut themselves and prove why government is correct. So today, in my speech, I'll be providing rebuttals for the first two speakers of the opposition team, analyzing the main fact and answering the opposition side's burden of proof. So firstly, rebuttals. The leaders opposition have told us that on our side, we failed to drive social discussion. However, as proven in our speeches, government side encourages more widespread discussion than opposition ever can. This is because we are generalizing the incident and showing how it can apply to everyone, right? ELO mentions a very good point, whereby if you aren't part of that group, you aren't likely to care, right? For example, if if you aren't part of the group, you aren't likely to care. That's just because it's human nature. However, if we release personal information, for example, we are saying that the media says that this incident happened to a young Black man that's studying in university, you aren't likely to care at all about this incident and about this news article if you aren't part of the Black community, because you, as the majority, you aren't likely to feel in danger from this incident, right? You feel like, oh, this happened to a Black person, they're in the minority, why is it going to happen to me? I'm in the majority. You feel safe, right? And therefore, we see that it is opposition, in fact, that fails to drive social discussion in today's debate.
POI.
Moreover, no, thank you. Moreover, always also stated the point of accuracy, right? And we see that opposition has provided an extremely shallow and incomplete argument. So why does the media need accuracy? It's to promote journalistic integrity and to make sure that people trust the media as it is actually stating the truth, right? So when people don't care, they think it's fake news. Ultimately, the accuracy of the information impacts apathy, as my PM has stated, and it makes the public care more and strive for societal change. However, this does not oppose our point at all, right? Because the media does not have to publish all the information, especially personal information, because the media doesn't have a responsibility to tell people what this person was like. No, thank you. They just have the responsibility to report the process and report the truth, right? Report how the crime happened. And this does not tie to personal information at all, right? And they don't have to release every single detail of the case, especially when we have just proven to you that the personal information does not have an impact at all on the quality of the journal, of the article, and the quality of the media, right? And we believe in our side, we use accuracy and to actually protect the identity of the thief. Now, furtherly, Ella has also stated how they will handle the personal information very cautiously, right? However, on our side, we believe that this is a slippery slope fallacy. If we allow this to happen and we say, okay, you can use it, but you have to use it very cautiously, right? You can only release certain information. We are setting up a future where the journalists will continue to toe the line and to push the line, resulting in more and more information being released in the future. Why would this happen? Because it is a very competitive market between different media outlets, right? Different media outlets want to outcompete each other to release more information to become the relevant media outlet, right? But if you are all releasing the same amount of information, no one wins. Therefore, we see that media outlets will continue to try and push more and more personal information to the public in order to appear more relevant, thus the slippery slope fallacy. Moreover, this also defeats your entire point, because you can't have the cake and eat it too, right? If you are going to use the personal information in a personal way, and instead of use it without saying the info, then there isn't an impact. You are abandoning what little personal impact. No, thank you. You're abandoning what little personal impact this has on wider society. And without personal information or societal cause, society can't relate to anything, and this promotes apathy. This doesn't prove that the opposition cares about the deceased at all or the family, nor does it prove that it affects society, and therefore this entire point fails to stand. Now, DLO has given us a one-liner on how releasing personal information how gatekeeping personal information will prevent further investigation, right? However, we think that it is not the duty of the media to investigate the incident. It is the duty of the media to inform and to educate the general public and to drive social discussion. The police have all the facts, the government have all the information, and they are the ones in charge of the investigation. They relate the information to the media, and the media reports it to the general public in a way that they can understand it. The media can actually report on the event without the release of personal information, and we do not see how this point stands at all. So moving on to the main clash of today's debate, right? The main clash today is journalistic morality versus the quality of journalism. And whichever side wins this debate will be the side that has proven that they can ensure a good set of ethics are maintained, but does not affect the quality of journalism at the same time. On government side, we have told you that the media has the power to show you, to spread information, and it's the duty for the media to report on the truth. Yes, go on.
So, imagine a news simply just mentioned a man walked down the road and then get killed, or a high school student named Jay listen to songs on the road and get killed by a high-speed car on Jalan Bintang 4. Which news would you trust, and then which one can raise more awareness? Which one has more credibility?
Well, we see that the entire role of the media is to, as both sides agree, the entire role of the media is to generate social discussion and drive social change, right? However, we see that if you are limiting the scope to a very specific group of people, say the example of the young person walking down the road, right? Then you are very limiting the scope to this very specific group, and therefore you are failing to reach a larger range of people, and therefore you are actually limiting the social change that can actually occur. Versus on our side, we are generalizing the incident. We're showing everyone, right, this can happen to you. This could be you one day. This incident could have happened to you. This could have happened to anyone, and therefore this will affect more people and cause more people to actually care about the incident. And we are driving more social change than opposition ever can. So moving on to my analysis of the fact, we do not see how the release of information of the deceased will affect the quality of journalism at all. And as proven by my previous speakers, we see that this will actually worsen the problem, because this will generate heavy societal bias and divide society as a whole. Humans are innately selfish, right? As much as we may pretend to be high and mighty, we are highly unlikely to actually care and fight for a cause that doesn't affect us. And for example, if the media frames the victim as a young Black man, you aren't going to care if you're not part of the Black community. And in this case, the media will fail to drive social discussion and fail to drive change in society. Meanwhile, on opposite side, they have failed to maintain journalistic morality, right? They're overstepping boundaries and the privacy of families, which is proven to you by my DLO, is highly important and a duty that the media must maintain. And this is why government takes this path. Now, moving on to the burden of proof. Why withholding personal information will drive societal change and discussion? As stated in our speeches over and over again, government side is able to drive more change and more discussion than opposition can. Because if you're releasing personal information, you're narrowing the scope that this news will apply to. And opposition is, in fact, causing less discussion and resulting in less change. We've brought this up many times. In our world, we can make this news appeal to more people, which would result in more people actually caring and more discussions happening. And with more people caring, we can drive more change. Thus, we have successfully answered opposition further than the proof. Along with the arguments that government has brought to the table, we successfully debate. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech, Carmen Whip. Welcoming to the stage, Opposition Whip. Here.
Am I visible and audible?
Yep.
Right, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. First of all, I'd like to start my speech by making a few clarifications and rebuttals. So the government team has mentioned that the media outlet has become more and more competitive with recent years, since more people will turn to actually releasing news and different tragedies about different peoples. And so since that the media outlet has in fact become more competitive between the recent years, the relevance of information is much more important now that there are more people more focused on media outlet than ever before. And so therefore, what they fail to understand is the credibility of the information is much more important compared to the privacy of some families. And so the credibility of some information include the names and info and the process of how the tragedy occurred and how it will affect different peoples in the future is so important. And so since there are so many fake news and going on, and it's very popular to see fake news and misleading information that online in social medias and so on, it is crucial for news and media outlet to actually eliminate the suspicions of some people when they are releasing and talking about cases like tragedies that have happened to some people. And so with actually eliminating the suspicions and actually giving true information and about the personal information of those who are affected by this and the tragedy that the disease have in fact faced, you would be able to raise awareness to more people compared to the people that you would in fact reach when you give information does not include personal information. And no, thank you. And second of all, I would like to also say that the clarification of a case and different narratives of and encounters of a different of a particular case could in fact affect how the case would in fact turn out. So for example, since media outlet is in fact an outlet where people there's a lot of people who are affected by this, and they would in fact see the information released by the media, and they would in fact understand and try to have different opinions and views about this. So for example, when you have in fact encountered a case where there is in fact a murder, and you would need different narratives and different witnesses from a particular incident, that's where news outlets would in fact play a role. They would in fact be able to spread information to different people, and in fact those who are affected and those who have also encountered the same issues would be able to report their narratives and their narratives about this. And therefore, if someone has in fact encountered this person and in fact knows about the information that the public does not know about, there would be different people to actually report to the issue, and in fact the people and the investigation will be able to go much more smoothly compared to having anonymous names and in fact information is not being released. And I would like to also discuss about the emotional disturbance that the families will in fact go through. So when your loved ones who are in fact deceased and they have passed away very recently, the family will be going through an emotional disturbance and to denial, and so they would be much more carried away with the death of their loved ones, and they will not be able to let the public actually invade their personal space. So they wouldn't want the public to actually know about what has in fact happened, and therefore the family would be more tempted to actually not allow the public to understand about the incident, and therefore the public will not be able to know what happened. So therefore, the permission of parents of loved ones and their family would not be able to achieve by a lot of media outlet, because the loved ones and family will not in fact be so keen to actually release information and private information about these people. And so I would like to also talk about how you have mentioned that apathy is in fact very important, and that since that you would in fact release cases about people where personal informations are not in fact involved, and these people will in fact these cases will in fact go into the media outlet, but without the information of these people involved. And so compared to actually having when you have a story, when you have a case where the information of the deceased is not involved, it would be less believable compared to the case where you have in fact proven that someone is affected and their name or even their age, gender, or so on, their personal information are in fact involved. You would in fact be able to reach out to a wider reach of people, and they would in fact be able to listen and actually understand, and they feel more affected compared to actually listening to a narrative where there is in fact no one, where the person in fact affected are in fact anonymous, and they would feel not so connected to the story, and they would feel that this case is not in fact true, and they feel this to be more tend towards to be a story rather than a case that has in fact occurred. And so you have also mentioned that if someone is not part of a community with it, if someone's not part of a community which the deceased is, then they will not in fact be affected. For example, you have raised an example where if the deceased is in fact a Black person, and the Black community would feel more targeted compared to the rest, and those who are not involved in the Black community will not feel that they have the need to actually understand the case, and they would feel that they are not involved in the case, and therefore they would be less cautious and aware of the case. And so I would like to state that if you have heard a story, and if you have in fact heard a case which is true, and whether or not you are part of the community or not, you would be able to understand that this case has in fact occurred, whether or not you are of the same community. You would be able to understand that these cases have in fact happened to real life people, and you are affected and part of the stakeholders who are affected by this. And so I would like to also make a comparison. So the government side say that apathy is in fact very important in the case. And so we are both fighting for the same, we are both fighting to make sure that we have in fact, our cases have in fact proven that having private information released about a particular case in the media outlet would be able to reach out to more people and be able to raise more awareness than your case, which you have anonymous names, like for example, where a case you would in fact have no names, but you would just say a man has in fact encountered this type of things. And so with having personal information, we will be able to reach out to more people compared to your case where you didn't have any personal information and you would just give anonymous names. And without a doubt, our side is in fact having a better firm and grip, a firm grip compared to your side, which your argument was not better than ours. And so the progression of our society relies more on the widespread information than the privacy, and that's why I have never been more prouder to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Opposition Whip. Welcoming to the floor, Opposition Reply to wrap up Opposition case.
Am I audible and visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So hello, I'm the reply speaker from the opposition, and today I would like to do some clarification first. So firstly, the government keep questioning about the importance of personal information, saying that personal information has nothing to do with the reported news. But why is personal information so important? It is to ensure the accuracy, the credibility of the news, making sure that the people trust the news that the media reported. So as I just mentioned in the POI, imagine a news simply just mentioned a man walked down the road and then get killed versus a high school student Jay listen to songs on the road and then get killed by a high-speed car on Jalan Linting 4. Of course, the news with the more information are more likely to be trusted by the people. Only then, media can gain trust from the viewers, from the readers, and then your news can only reach out to more people, thus bring more awareness to the society. That is when the whole usage, the main reason why they are media. So, and then next, the government has mentioned that the mental health of the deceased family will be affected, but even if you didn't publish the news, the tragedy can be easily spread quickly between people as well. So it can also lead to mental health problem. So by not publishing the info of the deceased people without the permission of the deceased family members will not reduce mental health problems of the deceased family members. So I would like to do some comparison today. Government today is so narrow-minded. You are only caring about the privacy of the people, but forgot about the responsible of the whole reporter of the media. But our side, we care about more stakeholders. We have regulation to protect people's privacy, but also raising awareness of the public, making sure the most out of the media's influence. And also I'd like to do a conclusion today. So firstly, we've mentioned the freedom of the media. The media's responsibility is to report accurate news. A news without the info of the disease is not accurate and credible enough. But the public have the right to know about all news, and then such transparency is fundamental for seeking justice and serve as a prevention for further tragedies. And we're not only protect the press, but also democratic values that our society cherishes. So next, we can ensure timely reporting, because a news that have to get permission from the deceased family members take a lot of time, and then it will not be the news will not be published on time. So we are looking at the bigger picture today. We care about more people. So we take care of bigger stakeholders, which is the society. We can prevent this. We can prevent this tragedy from happening by raising more awareness, because our news can easily get more trust compared to the news that the government provides. And responsible journalism can protect the privacy of people. In the meantime, provide accurate news. There are rules. There are a lot of new rules and guidelines for the news reporter, so that they do not touch sensitive info, so the privacy is protected. And without enough credibility, no one will trust the news, and then you cannot get enough awareness. So what is the purpose of news reporting if you cannot reach out to more people? So I believe that our house win this clash point, which is that personal info is very important than privacy in raising awareness. And also government, you have not proved our burden of proof, which is how the privacy of the deceased family members is more important than safetyness of the whole society. But our house has proven to you in today's debate that personal information is very important than privacy of the deceased member, so that our news can reach out to more people and then really get awareness, thus making most out of the whole media's influence. So with this, never be prouder to oppose. Please vote for opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, side opposition. Welcoming government reply to wrap up government case. Here.
Hello, am I visible and audible?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a quick moment to set up the timer. Apologies. Okay, I will begin in 3, 2, 1. Judge, today we decide this motion with one and only metric, whether it decreases apathy in society, right? The opposition has already conceded that this is a good metric to judge by, so let's evaluate this debate in this lens. But before we begin, they believe that more details mean more journalistic integrity. Does the opposition believe that personal details can still be falsified or written wrongly? That is a question we want to ask, right? This is especially true when you aren't going to seek explicit approval, i.e. info confirmation, from the family of the deceased. These details would just provide a lot more chances for sensationalism or wrong news. Case in point, Jiang Zemin, the former leader of China, was reported to be dead in 2011 by a certain TV station in Hong Kong. That was proven to be untrue, right? However many details that they may have provided, they did not increase journalistic integrity. They decreased it instead. The public would just be overwhelmed by the details. Plus, the personal details aren't going to provide any credibility. It's only an assumption made by opposition that is wholly unproven. This further proves the callousness of the opposition. They're willing to cave to sensationalism and risk the fact that information may be untrue just to provide a twisted sense of journalistic integrity and potentially disrespect the family by digressing from gaining their explicit approval. Is it not basic human decency to let the family enter a period of mourning and grief? And guidelines would be set, right? They say the guidelines would constantly be overstepped. Opposition whip has conceded the reality that media is a highly competitive market, right? And outlets will want to provide more info to become relevant. So in this case, opposition guidelines are nothing but a short-term fix for them to feel better, when in fact, as shown in our case, it is government that has the moral high ground. Furthermore, the opposition has not elaborated upon the guidelines, hence we believe we win this. And they have also elaborated upon how this entire debate is a clash between privacy versus news efficiency. But we have proven that personal information doesn't help with social change, and they have not challenged us on that. Hence, the clash is invalid and we win the burden of proof. We have also provided what the media should be, right? A metric, a factor which decreases social apathy, and not a factor which promotes privacy and sensationalism. The opposition has not challenged this as a metric at all, which are they have merely stressed accuracy and journalistic integrity and etc., which are points that we have responded to already. As my DPM and member of government has already proven, accuracy is part of government's case, but they fail to prove why it is necessary, right? There isn't a responsibility for the media to provide every detail. And in government's case, we're still providing accurate information and accurate steps of how the tragedy occurred, just without talking about personal information. We will be adding societal causes. We'll be adding elaboration on why this case has happened and how we can prevent this from happening again, right? We were also the only party which actually explained the logical process of how accuracy increases journalistic integrity and satisfy the metric of decreasing apathy. The opposition deliberately cherry picks arguments without responding to us, hence we win this debate. Furthermore, we provided a sense of how excluding personal information would be beneficial. It provides more space for promoting social causes. As my DPM and whip have suggested, people inherently care more about their own issues. We must make it a societal issue to ensure everyone can relate and hence be incentivized to activize for change. Overall, in opposition's case, the media will fail to drive social discussion and fail to drive change in society. And thus, on government side, we have the moral high ground, and we have proven the burden of proof and provided sufficient analysis of how government wins over the opposition. Hence, this motion must and will stand. Thank you.